What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. We are coming off of our joint practice with the Carolina Panthers. Bear with me if I sound a little weird, by the way. I've had the allergy attack from hell. I've been literally sneezing since like 8-something this morning up until a little while ago. But, excuse me, let's dive into all the things here. Housekeeping items. Let's start off with injury stuff. We were missing Quentin Williams from today's practice. He was out due to some shoulder soreness. He would have been able to go if this was a game situation, though. So not a true issue, just not willing to risk one of the best players on our team. And we'll get into the on-field work here in a little bit. But that drastically changed how the defense was able to go out there and play today, right? A lot of the chatter from this practice is that the Carolina Panthers not only just kept up with the Jets, you can make a strong argument that they were able to win the day in totality, right? So something to keep in mind. Cornerback Michael Carter II, he's still out dealing with his ankle, so I believe we're coming towards the end of that 1 to 2 weekish time frame originally given. I've had plenty of ankle injuries. I know you can never really get a solid timetable on those, right? It's really going to depend on pain management, and then of course with him playing cornerback and specifically nickel, it's going to require a lot more movement and flexibility and things of that ankle. So not something I'm worried about them rushing him back from at all, especially with seeing guys like Brandon Codrington be able to come in there and step up, and you have the likes of a guy like JBC or Isaiah Oliver that you can give some reps there as well. Plenty of fights to talk about today, 3 or 4 on the day as a whole, right? Michael Clemens always in the mix. He got into it with Panthers running back Mike Boone. Clemens ended up throwing some punches, so I'll get into that in a different video, but just keep that in mind. Salah's already mentioned there's going to be some repercussions for anybody that's throwing punches. We may also end up getting some fines from that. I believe the Giants and whoever they practiced with a week ago ended up going through the same thing, right? So we'll see what happens. DJ Reed and Chuck Clark got into it with Terrace Marshall. DJ Reed, Terrace got a touchdown, right, versus DJ Reed. Apparently Reed was holding him for a pretty lengthy amount of time after the play was over, or leading up, to the touchdown, either one of those situations. Nonetheless, Terrace Marshall threw the ball back to DJ Reed. Chuck Clark ran up, got in his face. Reed threw the ball back to him. So more pushing and chatting than any physicality there. And then there was another situation that was going on. Can't remember, but essentially a big pile up, right? Oh, Chuck Clark. Chuck Clark's big hit on Chuba Hubbard ended up bringing a ton of guys together as well. So not a dirty play, and that's according to the Panthers head coach as well. Hubbard's foot seems to have got stuck in, and then, of course, you don't want to see your guys get lit up. So people came to the defense. Overall, though, it's disappointing, right? I would have expected to see another strong command of the day like we seen versus the Commanders a week ago. That wasn't the case. Now, one of the things that is difficult to comprehend here is the Quentin Williams impact, right? So this ties pretty nicely into the reason why you make an argument we need to get something worked out with Hassan Reddick, because if Quentin is to ever miss time, or Jermaine Johnson to that fact, our two strongest pass rushers, proven pass rushers to this date, you question how much this defense still can be elite, right? You're down to one solid edge rusher, and then hopefully a bunch of other guys that can make an impact in waves. But the complete complexity of this changes, right? Now, interior pressures is one of the hardest things to deal with as a QB. If you're not getting that, then even having elite edge rushers, you can really scheme up a strong game plan protection wise in order to build enough time and go short game and do a number of things, right? So seeing Quinnen Williams comes out, I think actually had a pretty profound impact here. Also says a lot about maybe where we're at with guys like Javon Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas and Tanzel Smart and Leonard Taylor and all of these guys that are competing behind Quinnen Williams to not only be his partner but also for those additional reps as part of the rotation. So there's that factor to it. From a coverage standpoint, it's a little interesting because Bryce Young lit us up today, right? Multiple touchdowns, and he didn't even have his top receiver in Deontay Johnson, right? Also, they didn't have Xavier Legette, I believe. And so you're talking about like Terrace Marshall and a couple other guys that I can't name off the top of my head practicing with Bryce Young. Bryce Young himself, right? New offense, new coaching staff, and he's not coming off a great rookie season by any means. So the stars really should have aligned here for the New York Jets, and they didn't. Again, people can have some off days, etc., etc. But this just feels one like where we missed the mark, right? You can essentially call this a trap game if you really want to, where the Jets once again didn't play up to their talent. We played down to the opponents we were facing. So if it creeps up again during preseason, I'll be a little bit more concerned about something like this. But it wasn't a completely dominant day by the Panthers. We were able to come on strong, but our offensive line did allow 3 or 4 sacks from what I picked up on. The Panthers also forced 4 or 5 takeaways. I think the number realistically is 4, but I've seen 5 floated out there once or twice. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. The good bit of news before we dive into the on-field coverage here is that Olu Fashanu seems like he's making a seamless transition at right tackle. And if I recall this from the press conference correctly, Saleh mentioned the plan is to really only give him that work during practice. When it comes to game days, etc., he will be strictly a left tackle, and I like that game plan, right? You're balancing him out, you're getting him some further expertise with another guy in Morgan Moses that's an above average player at his position. And I think this is one of those things where even some of the things that you're doing on the right, you may be able to mirror to a certain degree on the left, right? So, for example, guarding your inside shoulder when you're lined up on left tackle. There's some things he may be able to take away with how guys are attacking him on the right side that he can apply to the left. And overall, it'll just make him a better character, right? There's nothing being forced here. This is just a perfect opportunity to get a guy that has starter potential right now, but is in a backup capacity with elite guys ahead of him to really continue to mold and develop and stack as much on his plate as you fit, I guess metaphorically can, right? But on-field work. So Rodgers, not his best day, but he went something along the lines of 15 to 23, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, was able to force an offside free play against the Panthers. We've been able to see that pretty consistently in the last couple of practices. So, again, just part of having a mastermind at his position. Tyrod Taylor, not a great day, coming off of a not so great, or at least a non-substantive preseason game against the Commanders as well. Pretty much ended his practice session with an interception. Missed throw in the middle of the field, and that kind of seems to be the theme of the day for us. Things weren't necessarily as crisp attacking the middle of the field as we wanted to, and the linebackers were really able to kind of feast for the Panthers today against us. Garrett Wilson, on a good note, was doing his normal work when it comes to dominating his opponent. Caught both of the touchdowns from Rodgers today, one of them being towards the end of practice, the other one being a red zone target touchdown for him. And then he did force a big, I believe it was a 60-yard play or so due to defensive pass interference to help them out during one of the 2-minute drive situations that they catered to. Malachi Corley got in on the fun. He was able to get himself a red zone catch with Rodgers on the field. And then one of the other interceptions of Rodgers' day was a pass deflection, middle of the field. Alan Lazard, a bit high, but something Lazard should come down with. And that deflection ended up leading to an interception for him. Gibson was on the receiving end of a pretty mobile play from Rodgers today. Rolled right, was able to find Gibson in anytime you can get him in space with the speed that he has and the shiftiness he brings to his game, it's going to be a positive. Lance McCutcheon had one of the best practices for himself of training camp so far. So it's nice to see him coming back strong after essentially having two pretty big drops during the Commanders preseason game. Run game wise, we still did really well today. Breece Hall had himself a big run down the sideline to start off practice. Did have himself a fumble. Now, there's been a couple of things I've noted with Bryce Hall so far. One is that on pitch plays with Aaron Rodgers, there seems to be some difficulty being able to secure some of those and make things happen. I think he's had a couple of fumbles in those kind of situations. Not sure if that's the same here. And then there has been a few drops in the last 2 or 3 practices, including this one. You know, we're talking 1 or 2 a day, if that. But still, something to make note of here for Breece, especially as we want to give him a bigger role in the receiving game. Braylon, he had himself a red zone touchdown on the left side cutback. Now everybody knows it was going to be a touchdown for the purposes of how they scripted and drew up the joint practices. They had him down at the 2, and then that led to one of the red zone interceptions from Rodgers. But it is what it is. And then Isaiah, he had himself a big play on the right side, courtesy of Olu Fashanu, 20-plus yard touchdown. Defensively, not a whole lot to really celebrate today, right? But DJ Reed, as mentioned, allowed a touchdown to Terrace Marshall, corner route in the end zone. Keep in mind, Terrace Marshall is another, 6'2 plus ish guy. So we've seen the likes of Garrett Wilson, which we're going to put him in a category of his own, but he will be facing the likes of Alan Lazard, the Mike Williams, the Terrace Marshalls here, and you can see that the size differential kind of give him a bit of a struggle. Now, it hasn't been a problem over his last 2 years. Realistically, we've seen some bad games from him, but largely the reason I think he's a CB1 is that he has been able to face a lot of these guys and beat them up. So, still some work for him to work out some kinks there. But just something to make note of. We may see more situations where guys are trying to get their bigger players on them and allow some of those jump ball situations or just the larger catch radius to help them out, as opposed to attacking Sauce. And then JBC had himself another pass breakup today, and at least in terms of our pass rush, we're still able to make some things happen with Tanzel Smart and Javon Kinlaw getting themselves a sack apiece from Bryce Young. So let me know what you guys think. How much are you reading into the Panthers outmatching the Jets in this practice? And do you expect that to translate to the preseason game? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.